Okay. Thank you everybody for being here tonight. We are on our Informed Transformation Journey, week number 6. And tonight we are going to be talking about the dark side of sugar opposed to labels, since that's what I prepared for, and everybody seems to be in agreement, so that's what we're going to do. Of course, last week we talked about heart health equals gut health, and all of the different things about how fat in of itself has gotten a bad rap over the last few decades. Understanding how the LDL and the HDL, the cholesterol, and understanding that balance. Of course, we also talked about trans fats, aka hydrogenated fats, and partially hydrogenated fats as well. Did anybody get a chance to set a SMART goal for last week that they might want to share with us based on heart health? Or anything else? Yes, Kathy?
I decided I better start trying to do more healthy fats.
Yay!
So I got some grapeseed oil from over here at Pearson's.
Right?
And I found a can of salmon in the cupboard, so I made some salmon patties out of it.
Good.
And I'm going, now what do you put in there besides crackers or anything like that?
Okay.
Just chia seeds.
Chia seeds, good
and
idea.
They absorbed that moisture and they came out great. And
Wonderful.
they cooked them in the grapeseed oil and they were really good.
Really? That's a fantastic idea. Fantastic idea. Another alternative, just to give you one more, if you guys ever want like a coating on something like that, is you can get garbanzo beans, also known as chickpea dried crumbs. They're at United. The only place I found them in town is in United. They have organic chickpea breadcrumbs, and you can use those. And those, of course, are going to be high in protein. They're not going to have the same carbohydrate makeup that like wheat would be, or breadcrumbs, or anything like that. But the chia seeds is a new one. That's great. So we got some extra fats in with that, really good fats of that salmon. And nice job, Kathy.
I use almond meal.
Almond meal?
Salmon patties.
Yeah, that would probably work really well too, I would think.
Grind your own almonds if you want. I just get it already done.
Yeah, save a step or two.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share their SMART goal for last week?
So we're just switching out the oil.
Switching out the oil. Great. Asha, can you tell Ollie to turn that down, please? Thank you, sweetheart. Anybody else? Okay. Terry?
We started yeah.
You started the liquid plumber. Started the clean start. Yay! That's great.
That's our goal, to get that one out of my boat.
Yep. Your boat's going to be a lot lighter.
I hope so.
Wonderful. Well, I hope everybody else is able to set some really good SMART goals for themselves last week as well, going into this week. And we will go ahead and get started on the dark side of sugar. So my quote for tonight, which I didn't get a chance to write up here because I was in debate as to whether I was going to do this or the other one, is do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And this is a quote, of course, by Maya Angelou, and I think it's a really great quote, means that we are headed into the middle of our informed transformation journey, but doing the best we can until we know better. And by now, we've gotten a lot of information so that we know better, so now it's time for us just to continue to do better whenever we can. I know that Anna had a great question for me earlier today. She said, when you don't feel like eating good, or when you don't, how'd you put it? Help me.
When you feel negative, how do you not eat negative?
When you feel negative, how do you not eat negative? I thought that was a great question. And so my answer was protein. So if you feel like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I want to eat this chocolate brownie, and that's really what I want to do. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to have some protein. I'm going to mix myself up a protein shake, even if it's just 1 scoop of protein. Have that first. Give yourself 10 minutes, and then if it hasn't gone away, then eat the brownie. But give yourself a chance to make a different choice. And of course, I explained to her when we talk about the emotional world of eating, we will talk a lot about how that happens and how to identify when our emotions can lead us into the direction of eating in a way that may negatively impact what we're trying to do. So I thought that was a really great one. I also had a couple other things come up on the BioTracker tonight, so I wanted to share a really great testimony I had today from one of my informers in Austin. I've known Tara 2001, 2002. I've known her quite some time. She's never really been a regular client. It's always been her partner. That's always been a client of mine for many years, and a friend as well. And she actually came in at $130 when she started the whole program. You would look at her and you would think, why would she need to do the Informed program, right? And anyways, she actually is the one who had really high cholesterol levels. I think I spoke about her last week, like over 200, and she's only 130 pounds. But yet she went to her wellness check in December, and her HDL is really high compared to her LDL. The ratio is really good, so it's not of a concern. So it's the same person I'm talking about. So anyway, she is in week 8. So yeah, she's in week 8 of the Informed program. So she's just a couple weeks ahead of you guys. And she is now at 137 pounds. So she's gained 7 pounds. Now she didn't get into it to gain weight, but she's leaner and she's fitter than you would ever believe. And people are asking her, how did she lose weight? And she's laughing because she's going, you know what? I haven't lost any weight. I've actually gained 7 to 8 pounds. But people are literally coming up to her asking her how she's lost the weight and if she's lifting any weights. Now, this is a person who walks and jogs. She doesn't lift any weights. But yet her muscle definition and everything is coming in really strongly. Of course, her muscle mass has really increased over the last 8 weeks. She said that it feels that she was one of those skinny fat people. And I thought that was really cool that she actually identified herself that way as a skinny fat person, because literally what's happened is with her gut microbiome shifting and changing, that literally has changed the whole outlook of her physique. Having more protein, she's eating better, feeling better. All these things are working out great for her. But just wanted to imprint that on you because I know a lot of us get really stuck on the weight per se, but yet at the same time, that's not the whole total picture. People are asking you if you've lost weight, and you really haven't lost much at all. You know, that should tell you that something is physically changing, and it's changing for the better. So be really careful about how attached you get to the scale when it comes to the weight, okay? And I don't know if I've said that in this class yet this time, but I'll say it again if I have said it. If you are weighing yourself on a scale at home on a daily or every other day basis, stop. Stop. We've got to stop doing that because that does not help the psychology of our program and where we're going. If every morning we get up and we get on and we're comparing it to the day before, it's just not an accurate number, and it doesn't help us remember that the weight is not important. It's the body fat, it's the hydration, it's the metabolic age, it's the muscle mass. These are the numbers that are important, not the weight. Okay, any questions? All right, great. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to get into week number 7, the dark side of sugar, even though we are in week number 6. You'll probably hear me say that a couple times since we're recording, so that way my recording people will know what's going on. So today's topic, the dark side of sugar, we're going to start with some simple sugar facts. It is predicted by 2030, half of all adults will be obese. Half of all adults by 2030 will be obese. In addition, currently 1/3 of all of our children in the United States are obese, climbing to half of all of our children in the next 10 years. So literally, we can expect by 2028 that half of all of our children will also be obese in this particular country. And this is all due to sugar. Even skinny people can be pre-diabetic or be metabolically obese without knowing it. Okay? And here's another one. The average American consumes over 100 pounds of sugar per year. 100 pounds of sugar per year. That's amazing to think about that. When you put all of us together, if we were not informed, right? Think about how many pounds of sugar now we'd be over half a ton. It's sugar.
Couldn't
Okay.
get in an elevator either.
Yeah, we couldn't go in an elevator together either. We'd have to all go separately. right, so on page 55 of our manual, more than any other parts of our diet, sugar and artificial sweeteners can be extremely addictive. And over time, they have the greatest negative impact on our health as well. On page number 56, we're talking about a lifestyle disease, and this is where we talk a little bit more about metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction isn't just one problem. It's a series of problems. It doesn't have just one root cause. It's a lifestyle disease. So as we hear this word metabolic dysfunction being thrown around more in the media and within the doctor's offices and whatnot, we've got to remember, it doesn't come from one particular thing. It comes from a multitude of different root causes. So it is influenced by your habits and the choices that you make. Now, while genetics and environment may play a great impact in this, they are not the determining factor. Losing weight, increasing physical activity, following your nutritional plan, and quitting cigarettes all can bring you back into balance. So genetics do not have to overtake what's going on. I have another saying that I like to put out at this time, which is genetics load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Again, genetics load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So we can all walk around going, oh, well, diabetes, it runs in my family, or oh, high cholesterol runs in my family, or oh, this and this and this runs in my family all day long. But you either own it or you don't own it. And you own it by saying you own it, and you own it by having a lifestyle that encourages it to actually set in and take place. So really, this is where lifestyle awareness for a healthy life, my tagline, really comes in at. Because the more you're aware, the more you can make changes to have a healthy lifestyle and get around those genetics that could potentially play a part in the determining factor of your health for the rest of your life. Metabolic dysfunction can be traced back to your gut microbiome. Greater populations of certain kinds of microbes produce toxins. These toxins cause us to use energy inefficiently and store too much of it as fat. Basically, what this means is when we don't have the diversity of microbiome in our gut, there's literally 6,000 different types of microbes. When we don't have a diversity going on, this sets us up for dis-ease. When we have a wide diversity, that is when we are able to combat and be stronger within our defenses. It's kind of like going to war, and we only got the army. We only got the guys on land. But we don't have the Air Force in the air. We don't have the Marines on the sea, right? We don't have all these different diversities of immune system or of combat to keep us strong, okay? So that diversity of the gut microbiome is extremely important that we keep that up, because that's what's going to keep our immune system up, and that's what's going to keep our defense system up against this bad bacteria. So when we have these bad bacteria, and we've talked about this before, these bad bacteria, when they metabolize, which is the natural thing they do, they produce toxins. And this is where these toxins build up in our system, where not only we're inputting toxins through eating, drinking, breathing, but we're actually producing toxins internally without that even going on. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why we need that diversity of good gut microbiome to keep that bad bacteria from overpopulating and from creating excessive toxins that they actually produce just by natural fact of metabolism. And of course, like I said, these toxins don't allow us to have our energy. This is one of the reasons why, since I've been doing this business, one of the first things I would have almost all my clients do, in fact, 9.5 out of every client that came to me out of 10 did a cleanse first out the door. So they would come in to the store, they would pay me for a consultation. What's the first thing I do? Cleanse, 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 cleanse. Everybody did a cleanse with me. Everybody knew me for being like the cleanse queen, okay? And the reason being is because I knew that that was one of the best ways to secure a customer long term, because I knew it was one of the best ways to get them feeling better quick. Because by doing a cleanse, they literally release toxins from their gut and from their tissues and from other places, the fat storages that toxins were hiding at. And guess what? They had more energy. They had more energy. And so then they'd come back in and say, okay, now what do I do next? And that's one of the reasons, I mean, besides knowing it was one of the best things for them to do, because all of us really need to continue to work on cleansing at some level or another for a regular basis for the rest of our lives. Because we're walking, breathing organisms in a population, in an environment that continues to get more and more toxic to us on a regular basis. But by reducing the amount of these toxins that are being produced by this gut bacteria will alone give you more energy. All right, page number 57. Having a large waist circumference is one of the most recognizable symptoms of metabolic dysfunction. So when we talk about metabolic dysfunction, you can literally attribute that to where your waistline is. So you're going to see a little graph here at the bottom on page number 57. It's going to tell you your gender and what potentially your waist measurement would be, and if you would fall into a very low, high, or very high potential for having metabolic dysfunction. Okay? And I think in all your manuals it's probably correct. Do double check on the female from the low to high. Make sure that's not, yours is good. Is yours good? Yours is not. You need to switch yours around.
I know.
Yeah. That's your coat, I know. It's the coat, yeah.
My other one wasn't right either. Can I not get one right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yours
Yours is right.
Yours is correct? Okay, all right, good deal. Everybody else's should be correct. It's just those original ones that are not. Okay, so page number 58, let's talk about how insulin works. Now, insulin, of course, is secreted by the pancreas. And if you remember in week 4, we talked about protein and how the pancreas also releases enzymes as well. But the main job that most of us are familiar with the pancreas is releasing insulin. Now, insulin is a hormone, and a hormone being a chemical messenger. And you're going to hear me talk about this later on. It is a chemical messenger. It's not necessarily a nutritional substance. It's a messenger, and insulin in itself sends a message for things to happen that need to happen in a particular system, especially when there's a lot of sugar coming down the chute. So, of course, insulin is going to rise when we put in sugars, and when this happens, this allows the cell to take in and use sugar as glucose for energy. But the problem is, a lot of us put in way too much sugar, and we've got too much stored energy, and our cup overflows, and then these sugars literally go in and are stored in our fat cells. Okay? So excess glucose builds in the bloodstream and is eventually stored as fat. Of course, when this happens, this triggers carbohydrate cravings and fatigue. And when you give in to carbohydrate craving, results in weight gain, and of course the vicious cycle continues. A perfect example of this is eating any kind of sugar or simple carbohydrate. And when I say simple carbohydrate, I mean something that sugar is instantly available. It's not like eating an apple. You've got sugar in the apple, but when you eat the whole apple, you've got the fiber that doesn't allow the sugar to impact the system immediately. But when you juice that apple and you drink apple juice, the fiber is torn away, and that sugar immediately impacts the system. So the difference between apple juice and an apple are night and day when it comes to what happens to your insulin and when it comes to your sugar and glucose levels, okay? So let's just say we're feeling really low, we need some energy, so we decide to drink some apple juice or a candy bar or some white bread or white rice or any of these simple carbohydrates, okay? What's going to happen is it's going to shoot up our insulin levels immediately because insulin is needed to regulate those sugars coming in, all right? And before you even put it in your mouth, your body is already telling your pancreas to start releasing insulin. You're looking at that piece of chocolate cake, and your body's already signaling the pancreas, uh-oh, get ready. She's going to do it. She's going to do it. She's going to eat it, right? Seriously, and that happens. I mean, that all happens within our cells. That's a total wonderful communication that our body has been gifted. All right, so our pancreas is already getting ready for that chocolate cake, even though it hasn't even hit the teeth or the tongue yet, okay? So we eat the piece of chocolate cake, insulin levels shoot up, So they shoot way up, but since the sugar is so refined and in a simple carbohydrate aspect, it'll give us energy right away, and insulin levels will shoot up, but then what will happen is it drops back down. Okay? Because it has a surge of sugar, so insulin goes surging out, but then it takes care of all of it, and it drops down. So guess what happens to your energy? Your energy goes down. You crash. So guess what? I'm feeling tired. I need to do something else. You know what? There was one more piece of chocolate cake in the refrigerator. I think I'm going to go get it. And guess what? I'm going to go back up on the roller coaster and it continues. And this is really, really hard on our pancreas. Really hard on our pancreas. It's kind of like your car. You're driving in town, right? And you continually want to hit the accelerator, and then you hit the brakes hard and it drops. And you hit the accelerator, and you hit the brakes because you got to stop really fast because you're going to run into somebody.
That's the way she drives and she eats chocolate. Exactly.
I eat chocolate cake the way I drive. And so there again, that's hard on your vehicle, is it not?
Nope, mine's last. No.
How long have you had it? How long have you had that body?
Well, that's another.
Yeah, exactly. My point, it's not like we can just go out and replace your pancreas really easily. So it's the same thing. And that's why when we eat sugars in a simple form, that's when we are really putting a lot of harm on our body. So insulin comes in and regulates the sugars and it drops up and down. And this is where diabetics get to be diabetics, type 2 diabetics specifically, is because their pancreas gets tired. It gets tired of this cycle. It gets tired of having to constantly react. And it's not being able to just gradually accelerate out and gradually pull off the accelerator and allow yourself to start coming to a stop before you have to jam on the brakes, right? Same kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons why we really need to be aware of how sugar affects us from a pancreatic and insulin and diabetic standpoint. So understanding that is going to be very huge moving forward as we understand sugar. All right, so, and by the way, your body needs insulin because what it does is it breaks down the sugars so that way they don't affect the cells quite so much. It basically regulates the sugars is what it does. And of course, when you're diabetic, what's happened is your pancreas is tired, it's not releasing enough insulin, and then of course you keep eating the same way over and over again, then that's when you end up being on, shots and metformin and all sorts of other diabetic medications because your pancreas is just worn out and it's no longer able to keep up with this load going on, okay? In addition, if you're craving carbohydrates, this also means your gut microbiome is out of balance. All right, so if you have this thing going on, it's going to make you crave carbohydrates and it's going to continue to put you in a state of where your gut microbiome is unhealthy. Times have changed. Today we consume large amounts of processed food. We no longer forage for our food. So not only are we just getting in our car, driving to the grocery store, finding the closest parking spot we can to the grocery store, walking a few feet in, walking a little bit around, right? Of course, what we need is right there because they make sure it's available to us. We'll talk about that next week when we cover in week 6 on labeling. And then we walk out with our processed food. We go and we just put it in the microwave, and then we get to eat, 20, 30 minutes. Well, probably not even that. I don't know. I don't microwave, so maybe 10 minutes later. I don't know. I haven't had a microwave in 30 years, I think. But anyway, so now we're eating lots of processed food, but we don't even do anything. We don't even go out and harvest it. We don't do any kind of pulling of the weeds. We don't do anything where we actually have to forage for our food anymore. So therefore, we've got all this excess energy that's been built up and we're not even utilizing it. Unless it's nice outside, we might take a walk around the block. That would be it. The not too sweet effects of sugar. One of the worst offenders to your bacterial harmony is sugar consumption. The reason being is because your bad bacteria feeds on sugars. That is its food. When you think you are having a sugar craving, so when you are feeling negative, Anna, right? And you want to eat sugar, it's not you. It's the bad bacteria. The bad bacteria is what's going, feed me sugar now. It's looking for an opportunity to step in there and get itself fed because it's more in control of what's going on between your brain and between your gut. All right? So people who have negative cravings and they want to blame it on themselves, this is really incorrect. It's really the bad bacteria. So if we get rid of the bad bacteria, guess what happens? We don't have the cravings. So if we put in a protein shake like we talked about earlier, we put something healthy in to feed the good bacteria, the good microbiome, they step up and they are more control of the bad bacteria. Does that make sense? That's why on this program, with the nutritional program we have set forth, that's why we're not eating any carbohydrates, complex or simple. That's why we're only doing 1 fruit a day. Not that fruit is bad for you. Fruit is great for you. But fruit still is a sugar. And we've got to starve that bad bacteria. And the best way to do that is to remove as many sugars as we possibly can. And some people may say to me, hey, but Shar, look at the sugars on the protein shakes. And I say, yeah, wait, Informer, guess what? The sugar that's in here is less than 1 small apple. In addition to that, it's with fiber and it's with other nutrients that don't allow that sugar just to hit the system like a candy bar or that apple juice we talked about earlier would. Make sense? All right. So keep in mind, oh wait, the American Heart Association suggests we eat as little sugar in our diet as possible. Okay. Setting the limit of sugar consumption to no more than 24 grams per day for a female and 36 grams per day for a male. 24 grams is only 2 tablespoons of sugar. Up to this line right here, which you guys might not be able to see, I mean, that's a tablespoon right there. So 2 of those per day for a female, 3 of these per day for a male. That's what the American Heart Association says. A 20-ounce bottle of popular soda contains over 67 grams of sugar. 67 grams of sugar just in a 20-ounce soda. Sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Because it creates a cycle. I'm going to give you guys a handout here real quick. This is one of my favorite ones to hand out, share with people. I think that's enough for you guys on this side. And then
I had one.
you got one. Do you want to look at it or anything? Well, go over. Is that enough for everybody there? Do you want one, Terry, to look at? Did you get one yet, Kathy?
Well, you're talking about, I'll get back to you.
Okay. They got it.
You got one?
Okay. So this is what happens in 1 hour of drinking a regular 12-ounce can of Coke. This is what happens. I love this. This is so much fun. First 10 minutes, 10 teaspoons of sugar hit your system, which, by the way, is 100% of your recommended daily value or intake. You don't immediately vomit from the overwhelming sweetness because phosphoric acid cuts the flavor, allowing you to keep it down. Most normal people, if they put in 10 teaspoons of straight sugar, they would actually throw up. I know I would. 20 minutes, your blood sugar spikes. Remember, blood sugar spikes, so insulin's going to spike along with it, causing an insulin burst. Your liver responds to this by turning any sugar it can get its hands onto fat. Any sugar goes into fat to get it controlled, and of course there's plenty of that at this particular moment. 40 minutes into the 12-ounce can of Coke, caffeine absorption is complete, your pupils dilate, your blood pressure rises. As a response, your liver dumps more sugar into your bloodstream. The andesine receptors in your brain are now blocked, preventing drowsiness. So we are now awake and ready to go. Okay? 45 minutes. Your body ups your dopamine production, stimulating the pleasure centers of your brain, which, by the way, physically is the same way that heroin works. 60 minutes into your can of Coke, the phosphoric acid binds calcium, magnesium, and zinc in the lower intestine, providing a further boost of metabolism. This is compounded by high doses of sugar and artificial sweeteners, also increasing the urinary excretion of calcium. 60 minutes into your your regular Coke. The caffeine's diuretic properties come into play, means it makes you have to pee, right? And is now assured that you'll evacuate the bond of calcium, magnesium, and zinc that was headed to your bones, as well as the sodium, electrolyte, and water. This is why people who are heavy soda drinkers have low bone density, have arthritis, have issues with holding their bones to be as strong as they should be. It's because literally their body is fighting for a balance of pH, and it will use your calcium in your bone and anywhere else it can get it to balance your pH for survival mode. But that, oh, did I finish it? Oh, I didn't finish it. After 60 minutes, as the raven side of you dies down, you'll start to have sugar crash. You may become irritable and or sluggish. Okay, so we're down here now. All right. You've also now literally peed away all the water that was in the Coke. But now before infusing it with valuable nutrients your body could have used for things like having the ability to hydrate your system or build strong bones and teeth. I know. And if I wasn't recording, I would have said that.
She did it for you.
I got a funny story about that with the buckle sometime. You'll have to ask me later on. I'll get a kick out of it. All right, so that's what a can of Coke does. I challenge each one of you to share this information with one person this week. One person this week. Just share it and see what they say. All right, any questions? Anybody want a Coke?
I actually went to a class and she pulled out how many packets of sugar were in a 32-ounce Coke.
Yeah.
And she wrapped it around her waist and held it. I actually have a picture, but held it out to here.
Really?
To demonstrate it to people, which I can show you, so that they could visualize how much sugar was really in that.
Wow.
But anyways, I thought that really made people, because like I said, you might put a couple teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, but would you add, or even in a tea, but
Yeah.
would you ever add that much?
Yeah,
A large
exactly.
cup? But anyways, I thought that was a good picture to make people realize.
Yeah. I know I've had a slight debate with people even on like natural sodas that are made with cane sugar instead of made with the high fructose corn syrup or any of the really refined sugars, and it's still the same thing. I mean, it may not impact you as hard because the phosphoric acid isn't high, you don't have the caramel coloring, there's other things that are not in there. And not to say that we don't drink natural sodas on occasion, because sometimes it is a treat for us. But at the same time, even in a regular, natural, organic soda, you're still going to have that same kind of impact. I would love to have that picture, Shirley. Yeah, I would love to have that. If it's okay with that person, I don't know, but we need to ask permission.
Well, she gave permission for us to take pictures in class, so.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So of course, food is information. That's why I have this up here as we're talking about sugar. Of course, when we put donuts into our system, of course, that's information opposed to an avocado, right? But as we talk about all of this sugar and what's happening, of course, we think about our fish tank. And we think about how when we put all that excess sugar in the form of just one Diet Coke, what it does to our fish tank. I mean, it literally is going to increase the algae. It literally is going to increase the bad bacteria in our gut because it's going to feed the bad bacteria, and that algae is going to grow and grow, just like that bad bacteria is going to grow and grow. So just by simply doing one of these, it's going to highly impact and make this look more like this from a gut standpoint, opposed to what it should look like.
So if we have alcohol, we should just use water or straight whiskey?
Yeah,
What about club soda?
yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that?
Ice.
Ice. Spring water ice cubes.
Or organic
Would be
wine.
best.
What if you puree
Organic
your
wine.
fruit and add it to it?
You puree your fruit? Well, you can do that. I
Then
mean,
you
you're
still
still
get
gonna,
some fiber.
you're still gonna get the fiber. Yeah, I mean, you're still gonna get fiber.
here.
But anyway, y'all are trying to work around it.
We're all
I'm
family.
gonna stop here. I don't think I'm gonna win this one.
We're gonna find our way around that.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to page number 59 on artificial sweeteners, the myth of magical sweeteners. So, can anybody tell me when artificial sweeteners got really popular? Give me a guess or two, anyone?
In the 80s?
80s, 70s, it was in the 70s? Yes?
Cause I remember my mom, well, maybe they were just coming on the scene more
In the
often.
70s?
Because I remember going to oh no, it was in the 60s. And I remember going to a cafe on the road between Blackwell and Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
And we stopped at a cafe
Yeah.
and we had a tab. That was one of the first
I
diet.
remember tabs, yes.
They were
That'd be
terrible.
daddy's tab.
60s, I was a little kid.
60s, yeah, so.
But, yeah,
I
was
remember
like-
it in the 80s, but I mean, as far as being like the advertisements on TV and all of the big celebrities and stuff, you know,
The
posing
pink,
with their
the
diet.
yellow,
Huh?
do the pink package, the yellow package.
Yeah, the pink package, yellow
blue
package,
pack,
blue,
yeah.
yeah, all of those, yeah, yellow, I think was quite on the scene, but blue and pink first, and then yellow followed right after
Yeah.
that. But yeah, so really, since the 80s, for sure,
big.
it's really been pushed on us that if we wanted to lose weight or be slimmer, we needed to do artificial sweeteners. Because that way we didn't have the regular sugar in. Well, what we didn't know was, first of all, how chemically toxic these artificial sweeteners are. First of all, our body knows what to do with sugar, okay? It knows what to do with sugar because sugar is a natural substance that was created, all right? But the creator didn't make NutraSweet or aspartame or sucralose or any of those things. So therefore, when we input those things into our body, literally our body doesn't know what to do with it. It's like it's a major toxin because it's like, okay, I don't know what to do. I get rid of it? Do I use it? What do I do? And literally we store it. Aspartame itself is a long chain molecule. When you warm it to body temperature, it breaks in half, and one of those halves is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde, which goes straight to your brain and doesn't ever really leave. It stays there. This is one of the reasons why we've got a high incidence of nerve issues, of neurological issues that relate to diet sodas and diet artificial sweeteners, such as Parkinson's, such as Alzheimer's and dementia, multiple sclerosis even. Anything that has to do with the nervous system and the brain is highly affected by these artificial sweeteners. And we're seeing that on a regular basis now.
How do you explain someone who's close to 80 and has lived on Diet Coke and candy bars? Her metabolism's really good. She's got family who lives along, in their 90s.
A heck of a constitution.
I'd say nothing. I mean, she
Yeah.
don't have any of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a really strong constitution, and there may be stuff going on in the background too that you don't know about. The thing is with somebody like that, normally they don't get any warning signs, if that makes any sense, because their constitution is so strong that they're able to fight it. I don't know what kind of mental state that person has either, if they're really, able to like control things with their mental state, by how they attract things in their lives. That would be something to kind of consider.
Well, she doesn't control her husband.
She can live with them, and that takes a lot of constitution.
A lot.
And I'm not kidding either.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
not being funny.
yeah, but it all comes down to constitution primarily. Some of us have a strong constitution.
It's like that.
Some of us have a really weak constitution, and those of us who have a weaker constitution are gonna deal with it sooner than others.
Oatmeal cookies
I think
or
the
Diet Coke
majority
and
of the
candy
people that do drink diet pop
Mhm.
are really obese.
Yes, because the sweet taste of artificial sweeteners actually increases your appetite. Right there in your book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And but if you notice in the
Yes.
grocery store, really the heavier people are just loaded up with diet pop.
Diet sodas, yes. I would agree.
And I
Isn't
don't
that
know.
somewhat of a mental thing too, that they think they're still doing something, eat what you want and then have a Diet Coke instead of a regular, or I'm
Yes.
still doing something
Something
about
with
it?
Diet
Yes.
Coke and your
Like,
Snickers
it's a
bar.
little bit of a,
Yeah, exactly,
I mean, for
exactly.
somebody who's
Psychologically,
yes,
yeah,
I
so-
mean, isn't it somewhat of a psychological thing?
I would say it's 100% of a psychological situation with a lot of people who are doing things like that. Like Nettie just said, have your Diet Coke with your candy bar. At least I'm having a Diet Coke, but so I'll have a candy bar. But there is, and a lot of those people have, relationships with food that are really unhealthy as it is, and they're finding ways to get around and make themselves feel better. It's kind of like the grocery stores. We'll talk about this next week. You walk into the grocery stores are literally set up to work on you psychologically wise. Like Jumbo's up on Willow. You know, you walk in, there's the bakery, and everything looks wonderful. So you go ahead and you get a couple little things, but then you go right into the produce area, which is the healthy area. So then you can compensate yourself psychologically wise by buying some fruit and vegetables. It's the same idea.
Or that nothing bad has happened yet, like with Betty.
Yeah.
She just hasn't had issues yet, so she thinks it doesn't affect her.
Exactly. And if she does have an issue, more than likely she'll say it's not because of that.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing it so long.
That's what I did with the diet pop. People would try to, and I read those articles and people would try to tell me that's not good. Well, I haven't noticed anything, and I've been doing this for a long time. That's my exact thought.
Yeah. It's not set up to take us out right away.
Yeah.
It has long-term effects, and that's the psychology around that.
That's probably the same with people who smoke and who are old and don't get cancer and
Yeah.
stuff, and then some people do, so.
Well, most people who die from lung cancer are it's from secondhand smoke. It's not even from the actual real thing, you know? Because most people who do have issues from smoking cigarettes, they have a warning sign. If they're going to have an issue with it, like such as lung cancer, they get some kind of warning sign. Then a lot of times they go ahead and they quit doing it. But the people who are like secondhand, you know, that aren't in control of it, I mean, they most likely will have issues because it's not like they're getting a sign per se. And if they are getting a sign, they don't necessarily relate it to the secondhand nature of that.
I was gonna say, how do you get people out of denial?
We're
You
all
can't
in
get people
denial
out of
about
denial.
something.
You
Everybody.
can't, yeah. Exactly. Everybody's in denial
we all
about
are still
something.
doing
but-
something we know we shouldn't do because for some reason.
Dang it, I'm worth it. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and check our foods and our beverages this week for artificial sweeteners. We want to look for saccharin, aspartame, sucralose, asulfamane, K, potassium, neotame. Of course, all of these are going to be found in the ingredient list on your products. Be really careful because we got sugar-free dressings out there. Anything that says sugar-free, beware. I would say 99.99999% of anything that has a label on it that says sugar-free is something that you want to leave and run as far away from as you can. Because the only reason they're putting on there sugar-free is because it's a product that was typically have sugar in it, and it's a product that they're trying to sell to you because of the psychology of, oh, hey, it's like I'm drinking a Diet Coke. I'm totally fine. Xylitol can be something that we can use for a natural substitute, although I always tell people to be cautious about xylitol because it can be made from GMO materials, primarily corn. And then, of course, agave is something that I tell people that is a really good alternative. Agave in of itself doesn't have the same glycemic effect on your blood sugars than like regular sugar or even honey or anything does. So even though you still need to keep it in moderation, no more than a tablespoon of agave at a time, because it does equal 16 grams of sugar in 1 tablespoon, but at the same time, it doesn't affect your glycemic levels. And by the way, agave, especially with a little bit of maple flavoring dropped into it, is a great pancake or waffle substitute. And speaking of pancakes and waffles, when you do pancakes and waffles and you use regular maple syrup on it, it's like drinking alcohol. It has the same effect on your liver as alcohol.
What does?
Pancakes and syrup.
I never got drunk off of a pancake.
Me either.
From a metabolism point of view. Thank you, Terry.
What about like sugar?
We're gonna try that tonight.
What about sugar alcohol?
Sugar alcohol still would be something that would have that same impact on your liver, but without the alcoholic
I wonder if those,
premise.
you know, they have the, speaking of alcohol, the skinny alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
Just less calories.
It's called
Usually
not
they're just less
skinny,
calories. Skinny drinks.
Yeah, and because it maybe don't have, maybe have an artificial sweetener in them, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know, that's what I was curious.
Why don't you get back to us on that one, bring us some labels for next
I'll
week.
like to bring shots.
No. Just bring us the labels.
Oh, okay.
You can have your tailgate out there. All right, so artificial sweeteners now shown to cause neurological issues, MS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, as well as ADD and ADHD. Also, So we're actually having a lot of ADD and ADHD issues with children due to artificial sweeteners as well. All right, page number 60. Cravings. What does your body really need? See, this is why we need to talk about this page, Anna. Just for you this week. So what you're craving, you can see here in the column, if you're craving chocolate, it's telling you what you need, which is magnesium. And of course, foods that contain magnesium would be raw nuts and seeds and legumes and fruit. I highly recommend you guys spend some time on this page, which is page number 60. So that way you can learn a little bit about what your cravings may mean, and that way you can know particularly what nutrients that you may need to increase to help with that particular craving. I always like to use the chocolate one because I think most of us females are really familiar with that, because a lot of times with PMS we have a tendency to crave chocolate. And the reason is because we are low in magnesium, and we need magnesium to relax the uterus so it can go through its thing. And that's the reason why, because magnesium is a relaxing nutrient, a relaxing mineral. So that's why that happens.
Isn't chocolate supposed to help like with depression?
Yes, it has a
Makes me happy when
it has a euphoric attribute to it. Yes, as well. Yes.
But with me, it triggers depression, even cacao.
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh, poor child.
Oh, that depresses me.
I'll eat it for you. Make us all feel better.
All
I
right.
do want to point out that, like in the 50s,
Mhm.
I think the average person only had like 5 pounds of sugar for the whole year.
Yes. I remember
And
that.
you said now it's over 100 pounds?
Yeah, it's over 100 pounds of sugar, but it was 5 pounds in the 1950s per year for each person. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring up too, I thought about this, you're talking about the immune system
Mm-hmm.
and the sugar. You didn't point that out. Remember that?
Oh, yes, I was gonna mention that too. I was waiting and giving her time though.
Good time. Okay.
But I'm gonna,
Thank
yeah.
you. Come on.
Me?
Yeah.
I can stand here, sit here, right? Okay, well, the very first time, I'll get out and tell you. That I
There you
did the
go.
program, I had an issue, I was talking to her on the phone, and I was like, I lost my voice. And I was like, but I didn't hurt. You know, once in a while I might feel a little twinge, and it was like, oh, okay, but then it would be like nothing. So we're talking, we're going through the issues, and then she's like, okay, you know, sugar drops your immune system in half for up to 6 hours. I thought, oh, okay, whatever. Okay. Well, like the next day, I got my voice back. I went in there and ate a little piece of candy. Within 30 minutes, I lost my voice again. And I went, I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, it was just mind-blowing to me.
Yep. Nettie had a similar experience too, didn't you? With sugar. Airplane ride. Everybody else had.
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah,
had
lots
sweets
of
on
sugar
the,
and sweets and.
Come home and got sick. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, sugar will reduce your immune system by 50% for 6 hours after you ingest it.
The sugar got you sick?
My immune system dropped when we were on the
Yeah,
boat with
so
all
for
those people.
6
the
hours.
airplane was on
So
the-
literally,
It was
when you eat any sugar, refined sugar specifically, your immune system is only working at half throttle for 50%. Well, 50%, which is half throttle, for 6 hours. Yes, Kathy.
And if you don't have an immune system anyway, that
Yeah.
would be really bad.
Yes, it would.
Well, yeah,
Yes, it
just
would.
think about all those people who have the flus, you know, and all that, and then what do you get, these cough syrup?
Yep.
They have sugar in them,
Yep.
plus alcohol.
Yep. And it keeps you going.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention too is that, a large portion of your immune system is in your gut.
Mhm.
And that's why this is happening. We think about our immune system being all over the place, but in actuality, the large portion of it's in our gut. So that's why that happens with sugar in our gut and that immune system going down. Thank you guys for bringing that up. Appreciate that. So let's talk about the many names of sugar. Now, this is just a short version. There is a lot more names of sugar out there. But this is something really important for us to take a gander at and look at as we talk about labels next week. It'll make even more sense when we talk about it next week. But we need to understand that there's many different names of sugar, and the manufacturing companies know this. And in a way to get more sugar into our products, because the three big things that will sell products on a regular basis is salt, sugars, fats, salt, sugars, and fats. Negative fats, of course, not the healthy fats. So by doing that, by adding all these extra sugars, they'll use different names in the label. So you'll think, oh, look, oh, there's just little cane sugar in there. That's it. But you won't realize that the invert sugar, well, if you saw the word sugar, you probably know. If you saw maltodextrin, for instance, you may not realize that that's a sugar. And if you saw the word starch in that same product, you may not realize that's a sugar. And if you saw the word treacle in there, you may not realize that's a sugar as well. And then all of a sudden, we're eating a product that is really 90% sugar. It just has about 4 or 5 different names. So going over this list is really important. And this is also really important for children's products, especially, because that's one of the things that they get to children really easily. Besides all the colored stuff and all the, neon yogurts and everything else, they're going to put a lot of sugar in it, and that's going to make your child crave this stuff on a regular basis. We had he didn't have any sugar, I swear.
That's your opinion.
Terry was in there.
Wait a minute, Terry. What's in your pockets? Anyway, totally lost my focus on that. Lost it. Oh, it'll come back if it's important. All right, cool. So anyways, careful on the sugars. Look at the labels. I'm always talking about children. The thing is that with children, one thing we had one of our informers tell us in one of our last groups, she actually works for, I think we talked about this, the Mountain Dew. Didn't we talk about this already in class? The Mountain Dew, they give the Mountain Dew to the children to help them with ADD and ADHD because that sugar gives them some kind of a levelness. And of course it does it for children, but it doesn't necessarily do it for adults. So anyway, all right, so page number 61, I want to talk about cinnamon real quick before we get into the actual page. Cinnamon is excellent for a lot of different things. It has a lot of antibacterial properties to it. It's very healthy for us to use in our cooking and our baking. But you can actually smell cinnamon leaf essential oil, and that will help reduce your sugar cravings. So if you are having a sugar craving, you can actually just whiff some cinnamon or put a little bit of cinnamon actually on your tongue, and it will actually help curb any sugar cravings that you may have. So cinnamon is excellent for that. In fact, in some of our products by Nature's Sunshine that are derived for balancing blood sugars, you'll find cinnamon in those products to help with balancing blood sugars. So we're going to decrease our cravings. So stick sated promotes a feeling of fullness. And so this is a product a lot of times people will do to help them satisfy cravings. Made for enjoyment on the go. It comes in convenient stick pack forms. I think I've got some back there. If I do, I'll make sure I get you guys some samples of that. Contains only 3 grams of vegetable fiber blend in each serving, along with 600 micrograms of the trace mineral chromium. And of course, chromium is also known as a trace mineral to help with balancing blood sugars as well. Then of course we have our Inform Berberine that we're doing with our program. Berberine is a natural product from Indian barberry is what it's from. It's a constituent from Indian barberry, and it's the same base from what metformin is made from. Metformin being a diabetic medication to help with balancing blood sugar, but berberine and metformin mimic each other. And of course, in the pharmaceutical industry, you can't promote a natural substance and patent it. So they have to change it and alter it a little bit. And of course, then they do that with metformin, but it actually is coming from berberine. In fact, 90% of all of our prescription drugs are made from herbs and natural plants. It's just that we can't patent it, like I said. Now, when you go to Germany and you go to the doctor there, they're going to tell you to do they get paid the same whether it's a pharmaceutical or whether it's a natural supplement. They'll actually have you try the natural supplement first. It's just our particular country is really driven with this pharmaceutical end of it. But money. But berberine actually activates key enzymes to turn cells from idle to on in order to help you use glucose efficiently. This is why it's so wonderful at balancing blood sugar levels. And it also helps the good bacteria to proliferate, and helps reduce the binding of or it helps to bind the endotoxins to the receptors, from the receptors. So those endotoxins, that bad bacteria that's making all those toxins in your gut, berberine helps to grab that and move that out, as well as balance your blood sugar levels. So I really attribute berberine to the people that have done Inform with me, and the other countless people across the country who've done Inform, for getting off of diabetic medication. It's all primarily due to berberine, as well as the nutritional plan and the other balancing products that Nature's Sunshine has with the Inform program in of itself. One other thing that berberine does is most people who have a tendency to sleep after they eat a meal, if they take berberine, this usually doesn't happen. Because usually people want to sleep because the excess load of food and the blood sugars being all over the place, they just want to sleep, and therefore the berberine doesn't blocks that from happening. I can say from my history of being hypoglycemic, where my sugars are really low, berberine has helped me out tremendously. But of course it's important too to get the protein in, because that helps you as well. And that's one of the reasons why protein is so important on this program, is because protein does help you balance your blood sugars as well as berberine. So getting a handle on that protein is really important.
It works.
It works.
I went from 7.9 to 5.7.
7.9 to 5.7, and that was in like 9 weeks, wasn't it? 9 weeks.
A1C.
Yep, the A1C number. So
And now I don't even take diabetic medicine.
you're not taking any diabetic medication
Just
anymore.
take my burgers.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So great alternative without all those nasty side effects.
Yeah. Just that's my
Pancreatitis.
side effect. Would you take it?
Your side effect.
You walking home tonight, aren't you?
You're being nice to your
I get
sister-in-law.
somebody, I get somebody to get me right.
Find somebody. All right, so with that being said, anybody have any questions on, oh, I have one more thing. Anybody have any questions on sugars before I move on? All right, I have one last thing to tell you guys about, and I had promised this to you guys, I believe, last week. I was gonna make you wait till next week, but of course, since I jumped the gun. So one of my informers from last fall brought this article to me, and I thought this was very enlightening. Controversial sugar industry study on cancer uncovered is what it's about. And I've got one extra copy in case somebody wants to take that. Otherwise, I can send you guys the link on this. But this is an actual article that was published where they talked about fat and sugar being in competition with each other in the 1990s. What's happening is they were studying cardiovascular disease, and they were trying to find out what the main culprit for cardiovascular disease was, and it ended up being sugar. But because the sugar industry was so heavily populated with funds, and the fat industry was not, the sugar industry literally changed the studies and altered the studies, threw fat under the bus. And that's one of the reasons why we've thought for so many years that fats are what causes cardiovascular disease, when in essence it's sugar. And this article fully explains how that took place, why it took place, and all the statistics that surround it. So when we understand how detrimental sugar is to us in all aspects of our well-being, I think then we can really make some better aware choices of what we should be doing opposed to what we shouldn't be doing, and taking care of ourselves from a healthy standpoint.
And if you have Netflix, there is a documentary on there called Sugar Coated, and it talks about this. Used to be like a sugar factory, and this gal went in and she found all kinds of records. She went to the library that they left stuff there after they closed, and they went to the library, and she's like copying all of this stuff, and they talk about that study against the fat and everything, and what they did. And I mean, they had people they were on the sugar board in the government, you know, so they had a conflict of interest.
Yeah,
So that's a really good documentary to watch.
yeah. Sugar-coated.
Yes, Sugar Coated.
Great.
I have to do accreditation sometimes, and I noticed when I was looking through the list of accepted ones that they would accept CECs from, and these are like fitness and health organizations.
Yeah.
And there was the Council for Soy on it, the Council for Wheat, Dairy, and so they do go in and try to give their own information to promote their products, and they try to do it with people that are supposed to be educating others
Yeah.
properly. But anyways, that just blew my mind as I read through those. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's why it's really, really a big thing for us to think about when we read a study, to just not take it as face value. Because a lot of those studies are done with a particular motive behind it. And then you've got to look at who's doing it. It's just like within the government right now. We have Monsanto, who is the one who first came up with GMO and genetically engineering microorganisms. A lot of our people in our government used to work for Monsanto, used to be their lawyer, used to be, one of the lobbyists. So we really got to take a look at where these studies are coming from and who's putting them out there, and for who is it going to benefit, I guess, is the biggest thing we need to look at. And we're so kind of bent up in this country. I think about, give me the research, give me the research, give me the research. But we don't look behind where the research is coming from. And that's what's really scary. That's what's really scary. Because anybody can make anything look the way they want it to look to you if they want to try hard enough and they have a big enough motive to do so.
Tobacco company.
The tobacco company.
And then that sugar coated, they compare them together.
Do they?
Yes.
They don't want us to be healthy because then they can pocket our expenses.
Usually if it's
Yeah.
mainstream, then it's not right, I found. And I did the mainstream fitness world for a long time, and the more I learned, the more I realized that it's basically a conspiracy because of profit.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Whatever was popular generally wasn't.
People spend a lot of money on fitness products. A lot of money.
And they're full of sugar. A
Mhm.
lot of the protein bars and things.
Exactly.
Or sweeteners if they're really.
Yeah, exactly. And expensive.
Yeah.
All right, page number 62. So let's get to our homework for the week. We're going to reread module number 7. Not module number 6, but module number 7 is what we need to read for this week. Write down 3 ways you can cut out sugar. Measure your waist circumference. Record the amount of sugar from everything you eat for a day. This is a great challenge. If you have time to do that, I would highly recommend you do so. And watch for any artificial sweeteners on the labels that you read. So anyway, these are some of the things we want to take care of this week for homework. And of course, we want to set our SMART goal, which should be specific, measurable, something we can be accountable for. It's realistic and it's time bound. So with that being said, we are going to do some smoothies tonight. I'm actually going to do a great smoothie that you all can do in the morning. I'm not going to put a lot of coffee in it, so we're not going to be staying up all night long. But we're going to be doing a coffee mocha smoothie tonight that's really super yummy. And yay!
That's my favorite.
And you'll want to wake up in the morning to do it in the morning, to be going for your day. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you for being flexible with me on my preparation for this week. And I will see you next week. Have a great informed week.